that I do believe at the local level, Jake, there should be more mandates. There really should be. And I think the hesitancy at the local level of doing mandates is because the vaccines have not been officially fully approved.
What we're seeing is an indirect way to pressure people in a positive way. It's a way of functionally mandating without explicitly mandating.
President Biden has mandated vaccines for all health workers, but now also for all government employees, which is another 3 million people. Whether these people already had the virus and therefore have antibodies already won't matter. They are still required to take the vaccine or potentially lose their jobs. What's interesting is that multiple reports from all over the world are indicating that the spread of the virus is not slowing down, even though more and more people have the vaccine. So I have a question for you. As we give up more of our freedoms and as more and more people are getting vaccinated, shouldn't the spread of the virus slow down? Isn't that the whole reason why we're willing to let governments limit our lives bit by bit? Alright, welcome to the channel guys, my name is Soren and thank you for joining me in today's video. I have a lot of interesting news to talk with you about, so let's just get right into it. So Biden has made vaccines mandatory for all health workers, and you probably knew this already, but this is happening all across Europe as well, under massive protests, yes, but still happening. What's new is that all government employees will now also be mandated to take the vaccine. So we're talking about like an extra 3 million people, by the way, of whom a good 30%, according to most polls, show that they are reluctant to take the vaccine for personal reasons. So the first question is, what's going to happen to all of those people? And what about pregnant women? Are we sure that the vaccine is safe also for them? Check this out, guys, from the Washington Post. Biden plans to require federal workers to be vaccinated or undergo repeated tests. President Biden will announce Thursday that all federal employees will be required to be vaccinated against the coronavirus or face repeated testing mandates, a White House official said, a dramatic escalation of the administration's effort to combat the spread of the Delta variant. It also says that the White House is not planning on firing government employees who aren't vaccinated, but will impose a number of restrictions on them as a way to encourage them to receive one of the vaccines that have received emergency use authorization. So the FDA has given this COVID vaccine and the other two major ones an emergency use authorization, which I think is a pretty good reason for, like, if you don't want to take this vaccine for whatever reason, this could be one of them, that they basically don't know the long-term side effects of it. To me, that's as good a reason as any to not wanting to take this vaccine. But now they're saying that if you use that as your reasoning, you are going to have restrictions put on you. Now, some of these policies are still to be made official, so this is just my personal opinion, but if it follows the pattern of other countries in Europe, like France, a lot of people working for the government have been refusing to take the vaccine, and they can't afford to pay the fee for taking a test every 2 days to keep it up to date. And so a lot of them have been let go, at least for the time being. They've been sent home with on leave without being paid. And I think that's a lot of the same pressure techniques you could see from the US government on people working in the US government. But that's just my opinion. It's speculation so far. It also says that the military is not expected to be included in the new policy for now. The Pentagon spokesman John Kirby, however, said, "We continue to urge everyone in the department to get vaccinated." So it kind of makes sense that they would ask the question about the military, because once you've got everyone in the government and in the healthcare system on board, especially if this goes smoothly, if there's a smooth rollout for the Biden presidency of this mandatory vaccination across the board, then it makes sense that the next step would be the military, because they're kind of inch by inch trying to move towards making it mandatory for more people. And I'm not in favor of them making it mandatory for anyone at all, but it would make sense if you follow their logic that the next group of people, it would make sense that the people in the military is up next. So Dr. Fauci and other officials have already said that they want to push people into making the right decision. They want to pressure people into taking the vaccine. Dr. Fauci said that he wants to make it functionally mandatory without actually making it mandatory. So I don't think that's a secret that they're trying to push people. The whole problem here is that they understand that directly forcing it on people is one step too far, as the polls show, both for Democrats and for Republicans. So they're trying to do it incrementally, like little by little. It's interesting because I mostly cover European news, but the exact same thing is happening in Europe. You could take the US government and switch it out with the Italian or the French government, and the exact same things would be happening, but in Europe. They're trying to pressure the people who don't want the vaccine to take it. I mean, I'm not against the vaccine, but don't you think that's kind of creepy that they use this language openly? I don't know, guys. Look at this article from DW, a German newspaper, explaining that fundamental rights are not vaccination privileges. The article also ends with a video, by the way, that's asking the question, once vaccinated, should people get their rights back? I mean, wasn't that the whole reason for us to get vaccinated to begin with? And what if you don't want to get vaccinated? You don't get your rights back? They're not considered fundamental rights anymore? I think we're getting a little crazy here, guys. So back to the US, and this is a problem I have with this whole issue of taking or not taking the vaccine. It's been so politicized. It's been something that the political parties are grabbing onto and making the other side look bad, in like trying to divide people over something, and then they step on stage the next day and they're like, let's all unite, let's all let's all come together, right? Take a look at these headlines. Joe Biden is done cuddling conservatives and their anti-vaccine BS. Politico wrote an article saying that potentially a death sentence. White House goes off on vaccine fearmongers. It says that the Biden administration is casting conservative opponents of its COVID-19 vaccine campaign as dangerous and extreme. That's that word again, extreme. Adopting a more aggressive political posture in an attempt to maneuver through the public health conundrum. First of all, trying to politicize something like this or calling someone stupid because you want them to obey you, it rarely works, right? And secondly, it doesn't even look like they're right. Like the vaccine hesitancy numbers are pretty much the same whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Check this out, guys. KFF just released the newest numbers of all of the people in the US divided into ethnic groups that have had at least one vaccine dose. Right? So you wouldn't expect to see these numbers if all of those headlines and all of those politicians saying the same things, if that was true, you wouldn't expect to see these numbers. In the top is the Asian community. They are at 65%, almost 2/3. Whites are around 50%. So around 50% of whites have had one dose of the vaccine. Hispanic and blacks are in the lowest groups. So obviously whites tend to vote more Republican and the other groups tend to vote more Democratic, but you wouldn't expect to see these numbers if it's all conservatives that are rejecting the vaccine. So I don't even, and actually my main point here is not to show like one group is taking the vaccine and another group is not. It's to try to dismantle the narrative that the media puts out that's dividing every day. When I see the news in the US, Fox News and CNN, they kind of address their own crowds, and they're in their own ways, they are dividing people into two groups, and they're trying to divide people because that's kind of now their bread and butter. And it's actually, I'm just trying to dismantle this idea that it's a political thing. It's basically all groups saying that for some reason we don't feel safe with all of us taking this vaccine, and that's all right. It should be a personal choice, right? Now, this is interesting as well because as you can see here, the numbers for the US in terms of daily cases of COVID is going up dramatically, and that would indicate a couple of things because we're vaccinating more and more people. So I was surprised to see this number, and by the way, this is happening all across at least the Western world. I checked out France, Denmark, and a few other countries as well. They have the exact same pattern here, and it's interesting because more and more people are getting vaccinated. getting both the one dose and then the second dose. More and more people, but even though more and more people are, we're still seeing a higher spreading of the Delta variant. That's what people are saying this is, the Delta variant. And it kind of makes me think that, I know you're not allowed to think this, but I'm just gonna say it out loud, and maybe it makes me sound conspiratorial in some ways, but it makes me think that the vaccine that we've been given was really effective against the previous variants, but the Delta variant is obviously in some ways spreading, even though people are getting more and more vaccinated. It's obviously going up the numbers. And so you could say that, no, that's just all people who didn't get vaccinated. But wouldn't you see maybe an increase, but like a smaller one? Would you see that kind of a spike if all of a sudden, like it's happening all of a sudden, right? It's not like incrementally, gradually, slowly jumping up. All of a sudden you see the spike. And it makes me think that the vaccine that we've been given so far has been really effective against the previous variants, but I'm beginning to doubt if it's effective against the Delta variant. And if that's the case, if it's not effective, and this is just me speculating, I don't know, but if it's not effective against the Delta variant, then this aggressive rollout and this excuse of trying to stop the Delta variant from spreading, and that's why we're vaccinating everyone, it kind of falls a little to the ground. I don't know, guys, to me that would explain some of the recent increase, and it would explain why all of those Democrats on that airplane, all of a sudden they got infected, right? Because they said they all had taken the vaccine. So either the vaccine is super ineffective or they're lying. And I'm gonna go with the first option, that is just the vaccine being, at the very least in that case, ineffective. Because they stated that they had all been vaccinated, and they had like a massive outbreak of the virus in that airplane. I don't want to make it sound like I'm against the vaccine, because obviously I'm not, but I think it's important for us to have an honest conversation and for our governments to take this conversation seriously. Otherwise, someone like me will just sit here and be like, well, obviously there's something else behind all of these governments pressuring everyone so hard to take a vaccine. Like if you can't have a conversation about, is this effective? Is this still effective against the Delta variant? Why are we rolling out these new boosters to the vaccine if the vaccine itself is effective against what's out there already? Taking this vaccine should be a personal choice that you make with your doctor. It shouldn't be something that's forced upon you indirectly from your government or from social norms. It just can't be that way. Let me know what you think down below, and thanks for watching the full video, guys. Have a great day.